In case you're wondering if I'm tired of the heat, yes, I am definitely tired of the heat. I'm tired of a lot of things. Mostly I'm tired of people pissing down my back and telling me that it's raining, and in a condescending tone telling me, oh no, we're taking care of everything. Oh no, you don't need to worry about that. Oh no, we hear your concerns. And then continuing to do things. I guess the summary of what I'm saying is I'm tired of people voting in people that vote against their interests. You know, we keep saying that they're the problem, but they're not the problem. They're a symptom of a larger problem. The problem is I wake up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon after staying up till 9 o'clock in the morning, taking care of other things. I got stuff to take care of around the house, and it takes longer than I think it was going to. What's tiring you out? I'm tired of the fantasy not matching the reality, the fantasy that we have of democracy. I go to the meeting and it's a bunch of things that are wrong with me. Louis Rosman talks about a law that they passed in New York where on the surface it looks like, oh, why would anybody be against people being able to 3D print gun parts? And the answer to that is it's a lot more nuanced, but the politicians don't care about that. So they came up with something quick and dirty and slapped a tag on it that, hey, we're doing this to keep people from being able to 3D print guns, but the reality of the situation is what they're doing is they signed a piece of legislation that was written by 3D printing lobbyists to restrict what you can do with your 3D printer. What Rosman was trying to point out was that you have these people, you're not 3D printing the entire gun. You're not 3D printing the entire gun. You're 3D printing a little piece of something that could very easily be misconstrued as something else. You could be printing the handle to a broken hand drill, a handset for a phone, something you're holding in your hands. And the way the law is poorly written, that would get red flagged, and all of a sudden you'd be sitting there trying to print something that you'd be trying to print a replacement part for something that is not a weapon, but it gets flagged as a weapon, so you can't use it. And it's one of the little ways that they get in there and they start controlling what you can and can't do with the things you purchased. Now he talks about his battle that he lost, and this is a guy who's got millions of dollars, and you know, he fights for this stuff, and you can tell by the fact that no, I'm just like, this is not the place to have a conversation. But I'm dismayed by that because I just can't believe that we still got so much traffic at 10 o'clock at night. Why is that bus out here? Maybe they were having volleyball games. And the guy's just now dropping the kids off from the volleyball game. But I was like, wow, that's pretty damn late. And they got to be back here at, 8 o'clock tomorrow. I'm like, all right. Where are we going with the Lewis Rosman thing? Well, once I get a break in the traffic noise here, which I guess is right now. I'm trying to say it in a hurry, but this is not something I can say in a hurry. If a guy like that is suffering legislative defeats, what hope do the rest of us have? Anyway, they write the law's poorly written. Someone's going to challenge it. And it's just the fact that you're going to have to go through that whole long drawn out process. The way our system of government works is you really want to get it right at the start. You really want to write a law to where, hey, somebody thought of everything from a legal standpoint, and this law had a practical purpose and it's serving that purpose. What you don't want is someone lazily writing a law that then we have to take through courts, and then the court has to sit there and interpret it, and then another court has to interpret it. It doesn't get rid of the original law. It just says, look, from now on, whenever we prosecute this is the way we're supposed to do it. In other words, I don't, like I said, I hate using metaphors because then people get confused on the language, and plus it's kind of hard to convey a metaphor when you got traffic noise next to you. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you write an instruction booklet shitty, and then a lot of people are getting hurt by your instruction booklet, and then your way of fixing that is you don't rewrite the instruction booklet. You hire, or you get an outside agency to come in and say, well, this is how people should interpret it when they read your instruction booklet. That doesn't fix the problem. That just tells that puts the onus on the people reading the instructions. That's the problem I have with the judicial system. Well, it's not that the guys wrote a bad law. It's just that you people just are misinterpreting what they were originally meant to say. Every once in a while, they do make them kind of rewrite the law. And all they'll do is they'll take out a certain section of the instruction booklet and they'll say, okay, yeah, we'll just get rid of that whole section. That's what I hate about poorly written laws. Is once they're on the books, they're on the books. You have to write another law that repeals that law. And then whatever original problem you were having may not get addressed. It's gone. I forgot his name. So anyway, that's the thing about Lewis Rosman. This looks like something that's going to involve a lot of... And what I think is probably going to happen is you're going to get some kind of medical device that's going to keep setting off a red flag for a weapon. And then what they'll do is they'll write a little exception that says, okay, that medical device is exempt. But I was like, but that doesn't solve the overall problem. How do you keep that from happening again? And they won't. They'll just keep having expensive lawsuits where they say, hey, we're suing you guys again because y'all put a block on this item, and it's something that's critical that people need. The other thing that's stupid about the laws is you got to have somebody to prosecute it. That's where the executive branch comes in. If your executive branch is lazy, tired, or overworked, it doesn't matter what kind of law you write, good or bad, it's not going to get enforced. That's the thing about Trump and the executive branch, is he's shown that if your executive branch is obstinate, then it doesn't really matter what the other branches say you can do. It's just the will of whoever is executing the laws. That's what makes the executive branch so dangerous. You can write all the damn laws you want, but somebody eventually has to sit there and enforce it. Somebody must have said something to those guys. First they got rid of the cars, then they're putting covers on them. It's just hard for me to believe that code enforcement didn't go after him earlier. Anyway, I used my 15-minute soapbox here to talk about Louis Rosman, so I understand the stuff he's going through. I can't keep up because the guy is a million miles a minute. He looks like he never sleeps, and that's a bad thing. Louis Rosman should be out there doing tech guides on how to restore your data or the latest information about tech things. He should not be going into the realm of why our government doesn't seem to work the way it doesn't work as intended, or maybe it does, and why it sucks and we probably need a new one. Which leads me back to why I'm a little disillusioned, because I go to these meetings and it's me sitting in a room where they're in control of who can say what when. And so you get your little time and you say some things, and then they talk about, hey, let's have a sidebar. We'll fix that in the sidebar. And then they never contact you. Or they're gaslight you. No, we fixed that. Go check it again. I don't know why you're still having that problem. Or the worst of all, they'll say, we hear your concerns, we have noted it, and we will get on it. And they'll tell you that, but then you won't see the action behind it. I went to a budget meeting and the city's talking about all the stuff they're doing with the budget, and it's a musical chair of debt. The big elephant in the room is we got to pay the police. And it's crazy that the people that are supposed to defend the city, and maybe it's not fair to them, maybe they're being made, but no, it's subtle, it's nuanced. There's some guys that put their lives on the line, and they deserve, to be watched out for the rest of their lives. And then there's some guys who sat in a chair, didn't do anything, kept getting promoted, and then promoted themselves multiple times so that they could secure a nice fat pension. But most of all, I just get mad at the fact that they're throwing the police at a lot of things that the police can't handle. Like I said, the police are enforcing laws that were badly written to begin with. They're enforcing laws for a situation that doesn't exist anymore. they're enforcing laws for something they're not equipped for. What you're basically doing is you're interpreting the law to say, oh, if you can't take care of your problem that you're having here, then the problem you have is punishable by death. That's the scary thing about having cops trying to do like social issues and whatnot. Suddenly something that's minor becomes a thing that can escalate into a situation that's punishable by death. The traffic stop of death. The eviction of death. The child welfare case of death. You can't take care of your kids, you got a nasty situation. So the jammer is still getting to me. If I stand still, eventually I can get around the... No, that guy was going 53. Where are we going with this? No matter what the question is, more police is not the answer. In a city this big with so much going on, you're never going to have enough cops. So what do you think needs to happen? That's one of those things where it is not something that I can cover in 15 minutes. There's a lot that needs to happen. My whole thing is, people talk about, like, they wave their little things like that's the one thing that's going to fix everything, and it's a combination of complicated things. That's the thing is, we're going to need a lot of grown-ups working on this. You know, people say all they have to do is raise the minimum wage. I was like, yeah, you raise the minimum wage, but how do you keep the people who sell you stuff from just raising prices once they find out you have more money? So that's my counter for that one. I've always touted, hey, we need more mental health networks, and that's nice and everything, but the other thing that causes it, like the situation I have with a lot of homeless people that are having problems, sometimes they're mentally ill because they have unstable lives. Not, in other words, living in the streets and not having enough to eat and just trying to figure out what they're going to do for the rest, to survive is what's making them crazy. Yes, some people were crazy to begin with, but the street sure as hell didn't help. And so that's the nuanced thing about that. One of the biggest things I think is our problem is that there's just not enough participation. One of the things I wanted to point out was I went to a meeting and there was 36 people on the panel, which means there were 36 government employees ready to answer your questions on a virtual town hall. But there were only 22 people there are only 22 citizens. Always something. I set off everybody. There were only 22 citizens, so there were more city employees than people at these things, or at least at the virtual meetings I go to. Then I go to the meeting, and the link that I was sent, or the link that was in the newsletter, was broken. So how do you get more people to participate? Well, maybe you don't have the budget meeting at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. Next week I'm going to try to go to the other one. That one's on 6 o'clock on a Monday. I'm going to be walking in the heat to get to it. But Dallas has an awful participation rate in its local government. Sometimes I don't know if that's by design, or if, like, I don't know if people are disillusioned and they're like, it doesn't matter if I go over there. You know, it makes me feel like sometimes when I go there, it just feels like it doesn't matter. I'm just the guy yelling at the wind. I found myself not really needing too much out of the local government. Right now, the only thing I care about, the only thing that I seem to be concerned about or have any knowledge about is these bad sidewalks, the lighting around Bachman Lake, the bad drivers, and the overcrowded streets, the lack of alternative transit. These are the things. This is my wheelhouse. I don't know anything about the social situations. I don't know anything. I'm almost ashamed to say that I don't know anything about the library. I don't know about them closing that stuff down. I don't know about the rec centers struggling. One of the things that bugs me about where I live at is our district is huge, and and the boundaries make no sense. Like, you know whose boundaries make sense? The police. The police have reporting areas, and they have a district, and they have a precinct, and all that stuff. As far as I know, the cops aren't playing politics with the districts. They put these guys here because they have to divide this a certain way, so they have an area that they can properly police. Why is it the police have districts that have sections that make sense, but the politicians don't? So, like, I'm here in Northwest Dallas. Our division is the Northwest Division, but our voting district is part of West Dallas. So you got a representative that's to cover Northwest Dallas, West Dallas, and then for some strange reason, a little part of Valley Ranch. The district makes absolutely no sense. And so I hear about the situation of the people in West Dallas, and that's like a 45-minute drive for me. Might as well be on the other side of the planet. And it's just crazy to me that there's stuff like that. Like I go to the meeting and I hear what they're saying, and I was like, yeah, I kind of know that area. But for the last year, this is all I've known. Man, it's bone dry down there. That's crazy. I'm pretty sure that if you look at my old videos, there's an old video where there's nothing but water flowing through here. You can't even see, like there was a point where you could barely see that little concrete jutting out there. And now I'm looking over here and I could pretty much walk through this. There's a little trickle of something coming through. Anyway, that's why I'm disillusioned, man, is I pride myself as being a problem solver. I know how some of these problems need to be fixed. But I'm not a politician, and so these things are all frustrating me. I see the obvious solutions. I'm like, just do that. And they're like, no, we can't do that because someone can make money. That would erode someone's power base. Like, it's frustrating that I have to go to these people and I get the feeling that these people aren't really, it's about their careers and it's about the power that they hold. It's not about taking care of people. Feels like the wrong people got involved with government. This is from a guy who feels like at times I'm the wrong guy. Walnut Hill, they go a lot slower than they do on Marsh. It seems like there's sensible people driving down Walnut Hill. Marsh, man, ain't nothing but fools. And it doesn't make sense because that little stretch over there from Marsh, from Walnut Hill to Royal, that's some rough street. It does go downhill and you do get quite a head of steam, but it's also very... The road is buckling and it's in bad condition. But as I'm sitting here talking out loud, I'm just starting to realize this Dallas is just too divided to ever get anything together. I don't really connect well with people, which is why I'm here at 10 o'clock at night talking to myself in front of a camera. So it's not going to be me that leads that charge, but I'm just letting people know out loud, yes, I feel pretty much the same things you feel. What's my plan? Well, unfortunately, my plan involves a constitutional convention and a bunch of other things. Ever since the pandemic, I've kind of lost faith in the ability of the citizens to fix this. And then sometimes I'm on YouTube and they have the videos where they do the gotcha thing in front of the MAGA people. And it's just so, it's like the young people say, it's cringe, it's embarrassing, it's sad, it's pathetic. Like they grab the lowest common denominator and these people start saying things. And then it gets to the point where when they're saying it out loud, even they realize how batshit crazy it is. I've got an entire electorate that says, well, I'll just pray on it. I say, yeah, but that can't be all you're doing. What's the old expression that I used to hear when I was a believer? Faith without works is meaningless. I don't think that was a line that Paul said. Because I don't need your prayers, I need your action. I need you to get up and sacrifice an afternoon every once in a while. That's the other thing that bugs me is ever since I started doing this is, man, you lose so much sleep. And the people who are gung-ho about it, they're just like, hey, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Oh, you don't need sleep. You need that. And I was like, y'all are the people that you're going to have a screw loose when you hit like 60. Then you won't be good to anybody. Yeah, it's the hardest thing in the world to do this when you're a night shift guy. The only thing I can contribute is a night walk, some observations, some tickets, and mostly just trying not to get shot while I'm out here. Because I am really starting to piss off a lot of folks. I'm impressing folks, but I'm pissing off folks. So if I wind up dead or hurt, it's not going to be a mystery. I knew what I was getting into. I was too tired. I'm too tired to put up with the status quo. I'm too tired to look the other way. Anyway, I found out something new tonight from the meeting, and that was, this is the important thing. When you see those flock cameras, I just had and this is the part that's not going to, no one's going to find it because it's buried within me going down Webb Chapel. But I had a police major tell me, in front of a bunch of people in a meeting, that we don't watch the flock video real time. In other words, the flock system is a reactionary tool. It's not a proactionary tool. There's not somebody sitting behind a bench, at least as far as she made it sound, there's nobody sitting behind, sitting on a chair, looking through a monitor and watching stuff actively come in that's happening in the city. Something has to go wrong first, and then they go and they check the flock camera for evidentiary footage. And that bugs me because I was like, wait, so you didn't, so what that tells me is that when I reported some of the stuff I reported going on in Bachman Lake, you guys had to check the footage after the fact. You weren't checking it like on a daily basis and saying, oh shoot, this happened. In other words, the flock camera system is flawed because all that information is sitting in a database somewhere, and it will only be acted on there's a lot going on out here tonight. It'll only be active, sorry, the flock data. Going reverse. Like, it's not a deterrent as far as people see the camera and they go, oh shit, there's somebody watching this right now, and they're going to dispatch the police. It's, we'll do the crime, and by the time they look at the footage or find out what we've done, we'll be long gone. I don't even know what the resolution is on those cameras. If they're sitting out there 24/7, 365 in bad weather conditions, they're not 4K cameras. Not in my opinion. They're not 4K 60 cameras because there's not a solar panel strong enough or batteries powerful enough to be able to maintain that 24/7. I'm speaking from the experience of a guy who has action cameras. You see, I don't care what the flock people told you. You just bought something from a system, the lowest bidder. They didn't make the flock camera to be great. They made the flock camera to be cheap and deployable. So you've got something sitting on a pole that isn't much better than what I got strapped to my head. And it's been sitting in the hot sun all day. I wonder after this summer how many flock camera systems are even going to be active and online. You see, that's why I'm not really worried about the flock thing, about who has what. Because I don't believe that they have, I don't believe they sold everybody a good technical system. I think they sold them they sold them the cheapest Chinese action camera platform and then pumped it up because they knew they were going to be charging the city governments. Yes, I hear stories of guys or dirty police officers stalking their ex girlfriends or stuff like that, but then again, that also shows that it's not a system being managed by competent people. My biggest worry is maybe there's a hitman looking for you, maybe a government's after you, and Flock just handed you over on a silver platter. Now, in other words, actual intelligence agencies with competent staff getting a hold of that information. And the reason that doesn't bug me is because they don't need Flock. They have something, like I said, they have way better surveillance systems than Flock. And yeah, I know that's the conspiracy theory brain of me talking, but they really do. They might use the Flock system to kind of like, oh, okay, we got a little bit of lock on them. Okay, so now let's use the heavy systems. You know, the Flock system will be used in combination as a supplement to the better military surveillance systems. And look at that, it's just bone dry. And that tree is getting, it seems like every time I come back here, it gets taller and taller. Yeah, that is something. So that's ragweed, man. It looks like a damn tree. That's a weed getting all that, like I said, getting that big. It's got enough nutrients to feed off of. It's got the limestone and a little bit of water. I guess it just needs a little water. And of course, I'm looking at the water on the surface. I'm not seeing where the roots are digging into. So. Anyway, am I completely negative and cynical? No. I know you got a handful of guys. You got a handful of guys working government that they're just turds. Then you have the other people who they actually are trying. And so I salute them. I know we're making progress. It's just the rate of progress we're making is aggravating and unacceptable. We could be doing so much more. was thinking about Jason Slaughter, and he was given the history of what happened in the Netherlands. How when the kid gets hit, like a kid got killed by a car, and a bunch of people just went in and started acting. And that was how it started. But that wasn't the only thing that was happening. There was a bunch of... Those people got mad. Car had no registration sticker. A bunch of people got mad. Some people got violent. I'm not saying that's what we have to do, but I totally understand why someone would. That one expired. You have to be patient. Well, I've been known her for 2 years. November will decide how much longer I get to do. I'll keep doing this. News media, they do what they always do. They're sounding like they did back when Hillary was running in 2016. It seems like the people have come to their senses and they realize they have no one else to turn to. So now they're overwhelmingly look like they're gonna vote for the Democrats. And I was like, okay, I've heard this before. You guys got all excited. You were measuring the drapes for the White House. In your head, this was a done deal. You had Obama laughing incredulously. Who's gonna vote for a reality TV star? Oh, Barry, you just didn't know. They hated you so much that they said, we will no longer put up with this hope and change nonsense. What's the thing they said about Trump's second term? Daddy's home and he's got the belt. Nah, I just think about all the foolishness I see. My guess is, they were moving the cars around. And so this guy pulls out over here and then he's gonna come back over here and pull back in. See, that's the stuff I'm talking about. The whole reason he's doing that is because their driveway's too narrow. The driveway is too narrow because this house was never meant to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars parked in it. That house looked like it was built in the 40s or 50s. 2 bedroom, 1 bath, just like everything else around here. These were all starter homes, and you got more than the house was rated for trying to live there. Am I complaining about the people that live there? No. The point I'm trying to make is, that's a family, that's a big family trying to cram in that little house because that's all they can afford. And so housing is being allocated to the people who play the game and just, like I said, they got a bunch of money. It's not housing based on need or practicality, it's housing based on what douchebags are winning the game or had an advantage to begin with. That's the part that's bugging me. I pointed to that yesterday. How one of my neighbors is telling me that they went out and bought one of these big house. The people came in, moved into the big house, and they just live on the first floor. They don't even, they got a 2-story house, and the second story just sits empty. They got the lights on, but there's no furniture in there. No furniture, no shades. It's just an empty uppercase room. And I know you probably say to yourself, well, they could just rent it out to other people. How about we just give the house to the people that I told you over there, who've got the wide driveway, who could put 4 cars in there and not have to have somebody back out and block up a street at 11 o'clock at night. Because you don't know who's coming down the other side of the street, and all of a sudden you're out there parked illegally on the intersection. Or how about we get to a situation where the guy's not having to drive that truck to begin with? That everybody living in that house doesn't have to have a car. That's the problem. Well, the tools we have at hand right now is I'm supposed to call in a code enforcement thing, and the code enforcement people say, oh, that's an occupancy limit violation. And you punish the people living in the house. It's not the system that's wrong, it's them that's wrong. They just have to figure out how to work within the system. I was like, they're poor and ignorant. They don't know. Trying to get a reception. Okay, trying not to get run over. No, it's just weird. 11 o'clock at night, no shoes, no shirt, smoking a cigarette, waving his phone up and down in the air. Gonna go on over and talk to him? Nah. There's a story there that I don't have time for. That's my big problem. I simply don't have time. I know if I go talk to that guy, it might be 2 hours. I would love to have that 2 hours. I guess my biggest dream is that I don't have to do this. It's not that I would have time to do it. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have the time to do it. But having time in a flawed system is still having a flawed system. And people would say, well, what kind of system do you suggest? Let's give that socialism thing a try, shall we? I know. You've heard for 40 or 50 years you had Saint Ronnie telling you how evil it was and all the bad things that can happen, and then he got his talking heads that'll sit there and tell you that I lived in a socialist country and this is what it was, blah, blah, blah. Except both those things are wrong. Saint Ronnie was a recipient of social welfare. It was the reason why he was able to make it when he was a kid. His dad was a poor businessman. He got a little help. And all those people that live in those quote-unquote socialist countries, two things were working against them. One, they weren't really truly socialist. They were just authoritarian states that came in and they used socialism as the banner. There has never been a true socialist. There is no true socialist nation on this earth. There are no true communist nations on this earth. Communism and socialism come about because the current systems fail. They're the things that are going to come in here and replace. Like socialism will come to the United States eventually. Communism will come to the United States eventually. It's just that what kind do you want? Do you want the one where people have been perpetually beat down and they're made peasant stock and they don't really know how to fight back? Or do you want the Velvet Revolution where there's a bunch of educated people that said, look, let's give this a shot? Anyway. I said, are you a socialist? I was like, I'm at the point where I'm a pragmatist. I know the way the change is going to start is there's going to be a small group, and there'll be enough altruists in that small group that they'll start making a very effective change, and that change will spread. And the checks and balances will be each other. We're going to stop doing this thing where we say, well, someone else can take care of that, or someone needs to do something about that. We'll all become somebody. I mean, like I said, I can't talk bad about people because I used to be the same way. And I was like, well, no, there's guys that we pay to take care of that. The thing still hadn't moved. Yeah, it still hasn't moved. The other guy did, though. There's a spot where his car used to be. It was all the debris. You know, about 5 years ago, yeah, about 5 years ago, around 2021, I put a ticket in to get sidewalks put down here because I said, look, it's like they got sidewalks on one side and they're terrible, and I said, and they don't have any on this side. And I was so excited when they said, oh, we put that on our needs list, not realizing was that's how Dallas gives you the brush off. They make, like I said, that's what I mean by it makes it look like they're doing something, but they're not actually doing anything. I'll put you on the needs list, okay. And the way you get off the needs list is a bunch of people have to get out in there and they have to start shaking the pulpit and saying, hey, you told us last year that you put us on the list. When are you going to take us off the list and actually start doing something? That's what they want. They want to know just how mad you're getting. Still over there, huh? You didn't think they were going to clean it up, did you? Oh, you know, I had hoped. Really did hope. But, yeah. I guess in a couple more months I'll be putting in a complaint ticket. And then they'll get that knocked out in one weekend. You heard that sound just now. Something fell off of somebody's truck and it's sitting there in the middle of the street. Anyway, I'm working in this system, but I don't think this system's going to be around much longer. That's not the cynic in me, that's just the realist. People will say, you're so young, you didn't live through the 70s. I was like, I didn't live through the 70s, but I got the feeling we had different people in the 70s. You know, you still had World War II survivors and people who lived through the Depression. You had some people that were like part of a whole common, like I said, these are the people that during World War II sacrificed. They didn't do, at least according to the legends. Let me rephrase that. I'm saying something based on what I heard, not that what I know for incontrovertible fact. The story I was told was guy parked within 20 feet of a crosswalk. And you say, oh, you gotta put a ticket in. No. I'm tired of that. He might not be there tomorrow. Who cares? Parking enforcement's already tired and overworked as it is. No, what I need is I need you to start designing the intersections to where he can't do that. That's the point I'm trying to get across. I'm not going to sit here and create parking tickets all day long. I'm going to bug you guys about making it to where he can't do that. Give me curb outs. Put some paints and bollards in there. You know, something. I know, I'm just repeating the thing that the strong towns people say, but that one I actually did read. That one, you know, I've seen the data and it works. It jives. But as I was saying before, the people in the 70s, these are the same cats who, you know, they had meatless Mondays, and they'd have a guy like me walking around telling them, you need to turn out those lights. You know, the air raid warden. and they'd have dances, and they'd have all these stuff, and that, at least that was the apparent, that what I've heard in the propaganda is the people during World War II had a collective spirit and they sacrificed for each other. I didn't see any of that, those motherfuckers during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I saw 50, 60, 70-year-old people acting like little fucking babies. These are not the people you want to go to war with. The enemy took one look at that and said, "Oh, we're gonna have these people in 1 or 2 generations. It's over." And so as I walk around here, I'm just trying to kind of prepare for the future that America might be. But at 50 years old, I'm not gonna be a 70-year-old man in a fallen empire. I'm not fighting for what is. I'm preparing for what is to be. I got here pretty fast, didn't I? How many miles have I walked? 2.45. It would have been nice to get 3. Whew. What do you think? I always wonder who has what are you doing with the radar thing? I want to get an idea of what's the average speed that people travel down here. How many people actually know that in residential neighborhoods you're supposed to go 30? And what I'm finding out is it's not an ignorance thing, it's just a selfishness thing. I got about 1 or 2 people who are just going to do their own thing. What's the old expression? Marked for correction, marked for deletion. I'm trying to get an idea who all the COVID babies are. People, if you ask them to put a mask on for a couple months so that we don't spread this thing, instead cry like petulant children. I want to know who those people are for the next time that something like this happens. Mark for deletion. But yeah, there's too many cars. One of the cool things about people parking down here is you would think that it would make people slow down. But I think you've seen on some of my videos, even with all these people parked on the side of the road, you still got folks that are driving super fast. My car hasn't moved in a while. Hey.
How you doing?
Hey. Whew. Finally. Well, I needed somebody to come out and say something. All right. Now, the thing I haven't quite figured out about how to use this thing is it's not going to get that last part of the GPS. That's all right. We'll see what happens. Okay. All